What the?
What are you doing?
Like, oh my god.
I don't even know what's going on.
Don't forget their gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed.
Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light!
Hi there, Pisces. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 7th. How are you doing? You're probably already looking at this reading and freaking out, and I don't want you to. It's a little bit more complex for the adults. It's more emotional for you, but we'll make sense of it here together, and you'll see that it will be easy to understand. On Monday, you've drawn the Eight of Swords, and this is a card that indicates that you're finally figuring out that there's something you need to do in order to free yourself from the prison that is your mind. So whatever is going on around you, the only thing you really need to focus on is that no matter what fences literally are around you, whether they're your homes, yards, fences, your apartment complex boundaries where you're told you can play and not play, the fences around your schoolyard or high school, etc., those are just perimeters. And you know that I tell you this very often because I want you to remember it. Your freedom comes truly when you're 18, when you're in college, making decisions for yourself, where you can choose what you want to study, choose how long you'll study, which, you know, it used to be back in the day that an associate's degree was great. And not that it isn't beneficial, but it is also important to understand that to compete, you need a bachelor's degree. Okay, so that's about a 4-year degree. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Some people are able to speed it up, but you don't think of it as a sentence. You think of it in terms of your life. This is your life. It's just a phase of life. It's fun. It's exciting. There really are no limitations on going to school, because even if you're alone for whatever reason, let's say your parents are not alive, or you live with an elderly person, or you're in foster, you'll be getting your FAFSA grants in the United States, which when you qualify for those, you don't ever pay them back unless you drop out, fail out, mess up in some way such as this. If the grades drop too low, which is really low, then you could be put on academic probation, which is just a way to keep you on track. It's not meant to punish you. The government wants you to go to school, at least here in the United States. We all want you to go to school. So this is something that you will understand in time, that don't think of it like this, oh God, because then it'll be 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. And then, you know, if I want to be a Super Saiyan doctor, or if I want to be a therapist or a teacher, then I need these credentials. But those are things that you'll learn to do just because it's fun. College is fun. Yeah, it could be pressure. And, you know, we have the sitcom stereotypes of the proverbial young person eating the ramen noodle soup and having to make tea from water and a few old tea bags. You know, it's just kind of demonstrating how that's just what the life is, that going to school is is your job at the time, especially primarily your function is to be a student. Some people will go be baristas at some coffee house or a server. And if you ever want to see them, they're usually the students are over there at Applebee's and Fridays and IHOPs. They're doing their best so that they can, keep themselves fed and clothed and in school. So that's part of the way that you escape the prison that seems all too real until you realize that the illusion of the Eight of Sword card is that it is just an illusion. All right, so there are some people that end up in the clink. They really are on lockdown. Maybe it isn't, jail or prison or juvenile. Maybe they're prisoners because they were put on restriction, because of something that they did or, didn't do. And by the time I think a parent puts a teenager on restriction, usually some major boundaries have been crossed. There's always going to be the more conservative types, or like me, I'm always on the kids because I never leave my kids because I don't walk away from them. I'm never gone for more than just a few minutes or a few hours at a time, from a doctor appointment, but it's not because they're out of control. It's just because I want to make sure that everything is right, so that they can focus on becoming whoever they're going to be and be there for them. And then by extension, I love to be there for you guys to share information in whatever way I can. And even if I'm just entertaining, I've done my job to do something for others. I love kids. I love the stinky teenagers because I was one. My mother, she'll tell you that I was perfect, and boy, that is not true. So keep that in mind. We're opening the week with the energy of realization that you're only as limited as your thoughts are. Monday can be a little tough. You guys might feel this a little bit on Sunday and Monday here, starting off the week, where you could have kind of visceral reaction to some perceived boundary, where you just get so freaking pissed. You know what I mean? Where maybe you got in trouble because you ran up some kind of a cell phone bill. I think the best way to avoid that is to put everybody on the Walmart Family Mobile by T-Mobile plan. Not the fastest internet, because it depends on where you're at, but shoot, it is a fixed price. So when people put their kids on Verizon plans, and remember, I'm not pimping because I don't get paid by anybody to do this. And if I did, I'd have to tell you. But, and I would never represent a product I didn't feel comfortable with. Like right now I'm testing a product for another company and they want me to know how it's going. And it's this coconut oil. And I'm like, I'm not done with the entire jug because they sent me a giant thing of it, so that's not paid either. They just really want me to weigh in on it. And that's the only way I could do it, is if I could really test it myself and really be thorough about it. So when I tell you that Walmart Family Mobile powered by T-Mobile is the best, it's because it is. And it would keep those problems from happening. It would just prevent those problems from happening. So, but you can imagine what it's like to be, if you've ever had your phone taken away, or if you've ever had your internet taken away, or you've been restricted in one way or another. And even if you get sick of the boundaries and limitations and perceived fences around you, as metaphoric as that is, it really is, somewhat limiting when you're a teenager, but for your own good, because it's not really you that's the problem. It's I was going to call them the F word, but it's those kind of people that take advantage of young, naive, new, shiny people, and so if you're ever feeling upset about being protected from yourself, I promise you that no normal, reasonable parent is doing it because they think you're dumb. It's because you're new. And you need experiences to build on experiences and to understand what the world is doing and what freaking weirdos, are in there. So just remember, Mars in Libra, your solar 8th house, opposes Uranus in Aries. So, you could be watching some other people that are important in your life having some relationship issues if it's not you. These are more significant though. So it could be that you're watching a sibling or another relative, an older sibling, maybe your parents, or whatever the structure is of the adults that are supposed to be taking care of you and helping you. They could be having relationship issues as well. So, you could see adults at this time really acting out because they're the ones really going through the harder part of it. And it isn't because they're like more badass, it's just because they're older, so they've made different choices. So try not to internalize that too much. Think of it like this: when you see people, let's just say you're like, Rita, they be crazy. And I would just tell you this: observe, make mental notes that that's not the way you want your relationship to be. We don't really want to project a 100% impossible, if not unlikely, relationship onto you guys, because then the first time there's a hiccup, it will be like, I have been stabbed through the heart. This is so bad, because you really won't know how to deal with it. So we don't want you to see what an impossible representation of a marriage or a relationship is, because it's not always going to be like situation comedies on TV, and it's not always going to be perfect. So on Tuesday we got the Page of Swords in reverse, and this is again an indication that there's something somewhat argumentative, if not confrontational, happening. So again, first of all, you guys are not the type of people to be that way, although everybody can be any kind of way. Just a sun sign, just a rising sign, just a moon sign, even just the moon signs and the combinations of planetary placements in a natal chart doesn't guarantee a person is going to act according to their blueprint or whatever. But it is so varied. People's responses are so varied that we don't know. You could have a very gentle Pisces, fishy person who's just so sweet and fluid and magical and special, and then have them have a rage attack. You just don't know how people are going to react, and it depends on the situation and a lot of factors. That's why there really is no way across the board without getting to know a person personally and watching them over a long period of time what they're going to be like. But there's definitely something here going on that's confrontational. You could keep in mind that for you astrology buffs, that Mercury in Sagittarius, your solar 10th house, will square the North Node in Virgo, your solar 7th house. So there is an element of a challenge here, which you guys could see this more played out between you and a best friend, or you and a boyfriend or girlfriend kind of thing. And then publicly people are noticing this. So, good rule of thumb is to kind of keep your private life to yourself. Talk to people when you need help. Certainly always wonderful if you have somebody that you can trust with your personal life, but that's not always possible either. And you have to be careful about what you say about your personal life. Look at what happens just because we all love to overshare, that inadvertently the stupidest thing ever is, right? Send a naked picture of yourself with your face showing, to somebody on a phone. I'm not into allowing that, and it's illegal in most situations for young people to be engaging in this, sending it or receiving it. So, but I think it was the actress Reese Witherspoon who said it. Why would anybody send pictures of themselves in these compromised positions? Now, we always hear, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't think any of us do these things with the idea that somebody's going to betray us, but over time, we don't want to have you guys learning those lessons. Like if somebody like me gets busted in some weird way, I'd be like, well, damn, I own that then. But for you guys, it could cause so much more problems and, bullying and humiliation and harassment, and none of it is fair. Thank God that we're focusing more on getting the bullies under control and getting them help if and when possible. It's not always possible, but in the fullness of time, eventually these people figure out what they're doing or they end up in prison, right? So Wednesday we have the Three of Swords in reverse. So again, we've got this issue with a communication problem, obviously, right? Don't you agree? Sword suit, communications, challenges, the need to be incisive in some way, discerning any of the mental processes, where you have to consider, do I think my way through? Do I fight my way out? Do I argue my point? Which again, just by virtue of being a minor, at least here in the United States, right under 18, when you can't vote yet, you might have a driver's permit, all of these different things that come with time. We know that most usually with teenagers, it is more of a visceral reaction when people get into arguments, and and confrontations or into any emotional situations, you guys feel it viscerally. And with that word, what I mean is physically, in a very primitive way, you can feel it in your body. The pain is much more acute. As you get older, you develop what we like to call a thicker skin, which just really alludes to like a callus. Like if you've ever been paid to go sweep a place, or you have a job where you have to sweep, or you're sweeping at home, whatever chores, and you'll notice your soft hands are sore, and that over time that skin will be thicker because it's actually preventing injuries by thickening the skin. Similar to what calluses do. If you get a blister and then it heals over, and if you keep doing the same action in the same spot, it will actually become tougher skin so that you don't hurt. That's why if you've ever heard the saying, oh, he's got soft hands, what it means is if he or she has soft hands, it means that person's not used to working with their hands and doing labor. Like when I had to set acres and acres of property on fire to clear it, and somebody was teaching me to do all this, this old man, let me tell you something. I developed calluses on my hands really quickly, but it was so satisfying to get that job done, to just know that I could do it, and that this man, wasn't really physically able to help me. He had some machines later on, but he taught me how to do things. And then he was so crazy, he would test me by setting fires in different places, so that while I was doing a controlled burn, I'd have to run to another area of the property to put that fire out. And I was like, you bastard. And he's like, yep, just testing your reflexes. And I'm like, holy crap, what would have happened, if it would have gotten out of control? But the Three of Swords is saying that one way or another, you're going to develop that thicker skin, and it could be the scar tissue over the heart, which you may have heard me saying to others, maybe in one of your readings, that even though your heart breaks or it fractures or it tears symbolically, through heartache and pain, if some boyfriend or girlfriend or best friend or other person close to you, somebody close enough to be able to hurt you, to break your heart, as it were, that the scar tissue that forms over it is like, if you've ever had a scar, if you had surgery, if you ever cut yourself, hurt yourself deeply, the scar tissue that forms may be unsightly, but it is the strongest damn stuff. And it is really what I tell people: remember that you will heal and you'll be stronger each time. It's probably of no consolation because you guys are very sensitive. My moon is in Pisces in the 7th house. Can you believe that? I'm sure you can. And so I know what it's like to be oversensitive, and then over time, it really isn't so much that I've desensitized as I've just learned to cope better with different problems or rejections or struggles or insecurities, or even people that have been outright out there, to hurt me, to cause me problems. You learn how to notice these things well in advance before they happen as well, which, only experience can bring. The sun in Sagittarius is squaring Chiron in Pisces, your solar first house. So Mercury also enters Capricorn at that point, your 11th house. So I don't deny that there could be a social issue that where it defines you, it also can move you past this wounding point. Maybe this situation with a friend or somebody who's betrayed you has already happened, and you really haven't healed to the next level yet. We don't rush healing. We don't know how long it takes to heal. We become more concerned, especially when a resilient young person like you doesn't heal or appear to be going through the stages of the grieving process that happens during healing. Ultimately, we just want to make sure you're not stuck there for too long. It's not normal. You guys, teenagers, are supposed to be excited and happy and positive and out of control and loud and boisterous and exciting. So of course it's not a natural state. If you ever meet a depressed teenager, we have to look at this very carefully to see what it is that's causing this, because it's just really not a natural state. Of course, you guys are sensitive, and just by way of virtue of being young, you're not used to these problems and experiences in the world. But as you go along, like I said, your skin will thicken. You'll be able to learn how to move forward and say, I'm not going to totally not even let this rumor bother me, because as soon as I put more energy into either disputing the rumor or conceding to it, just giving in, or propagating the rumor by you being a part of it, it's totally not even worth it. It's probably the lamest thing ever. What day am I on here? 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so on Thursday, with the Ace of Wands in reverse, we've got, again, this Mars in Libra is opposing the Uranus in Aries. So for you, that's your 8th and 2nd houses, solar houses. So, you know, Mars doesn't really like being in Libra, because Mars wants to be energetic and passionate and even fight. And you know that that's not about Libra. And Uranus can be very surprising. It can also be very revealing. And I believe that Uranus has a special function. Sometimes we get slapped in the back of the head by an experience. We're like, what the? Think fast. It's like somebody pitches a ball at you and you got to swing, ready or not, right? And so I think with you guys, there's going to be more of the element of, it could be something as simple as having lent a precious item to a friend, like a CD player, computer, iPod, something. It could be a handbag, it could be some clothes, it can be some tools, it can be some weights, whatever it is. That, of course, relatively speaking, in terms of what possessions you have that you could lend, it could probably be video games, because the chances are less likely that you own 2 couches and a china cabinet, and then you're going to lend that out. So it's going to be stuff more along the lines of what you might own. And like if it's a piece of jewelry, let me ask my dog, what are you doing, Tona? Where do you want to go? In or out? She's the cutest thing, this black Labradoodle. She's just got the saddest little face. Okay, you can't scratch me, no. Okay, sit down there. So anyway, the Ace of Wands in reverse is talking about the energy of something not quite getting off the ground. It also could be that the return that you expect, like either the item returned or you lent somebody $20, it might not be there, because this Mars in Libra and Uranus in Aries could almost be like, you did what? You lent this $60 video game to somebody else without telling me? And now that person isn't going to return it. Do you know how busted I'm going to be at home? And then it's like you're in this catch-22, because the right thing to do would be for that friend who lent it out or somehow lost it without your permission, because the only permission you gave was insofar as what you let them do, which was to use it. But if it got kiped, stolen from their house, it would be a totally different situation. But the right thing would be for that person to make a deal with you on how you're going to repay that. But not everybody sees it that way. Your parents could be like, you better get that game back, or you better come back here with $60. And of course, that's kind of a hard-headed approach, because maybe the bigger lesson is don't lend these things out. Or maybe your parents never told you don't lend that game out. It happened to one of my sons recently where I was not home and he let a friend come over. And I guess once he called me and stuff, I was okay with it. But then I was gone an extended period of time. And then by the time I came back, he had lent out not 1 video game, not 2 video game. It was like 4 or 5. And I was like, oh, crap. I didn't buy those. Their eldest brother did. And I was like, you got to get this back. You got to get these back, because it may not even be his mistake. But if these get lost or stolen from his house, you're not going to get them replaced by this kid. Not that he wouldn't have wanted to, but they probably didn't have the means to, because we didn't even have the means to own them. It was that their brother bought them all. So, we had to talk about that. And I said, okay, so never do that again, because it was just too frightening. It was like, I know it had to have been a couple of months, if not more, before he got those back. So keep that in mind. Venus and Scorpio will trine Neptune in Pisces. And so I think that this will help you mitigate these problems, ameliorate them, make them smaller, by talking, by communicating about it. So I wouldn't get involved in starting anything new, especially if it relates to like if you're going to invest some money in a project with somebody, like, hey, we're going to put all our money together. We're going to buy this PlayStation. And then nobody really thought about what would happen if the PlayStation was being shared around the houses and it got stolen from one of those houses. You see what I'm saying? So this is you're always creative, but this can be a creative time for you to figure out how to handle some of these issues. Your friends are involved, so you just need to be really careful about what exposure you allow, because other people could end up, like I said, inadvertently or otherwise causing you some issues. Okay, like getting the thing stolen or losing it, not returning it, breaking it. What do you do? A lot of people don't realize that it would just be far easier to say, hey, look, my parents don't, or my guardians or whoever doesn't let me lend my stuff out. They've already made that very clear. You could have a discussion with your parents or guardians about it if you don't want to feel like you're fibbing, just off the cuff. But it is, easy to see how you could probably understand that nobody wants you to have to lend stuff out and then be without it, because they probably wouldn't be able, unless your parents are super wealthy and don't care because they've got money coming out of their bottoms, that it's kind of hard to replace certain items that are very valuable, and then especially if they have sentimental value, right? So on Friday you have the Strength card in reverse, and this is a card here that talks about, I think with you guys it'll be more or less about feeling a little powerless and feeling ineffectual, that you just can't really affect any change or improvement or difference in your situation. Or the example that I love to use is like, you want to date somebody and your parents are like, oh yeah, hell no. And you're like, what? Maybe the approach would have been to never say you're dating, because truly it's friending. Maybe it would have been easier for you to just present it more accurately. I'm not telling you to lie, but present it more accurately. Even if somebody says we're going steady with you guys, it's usually expected that it is less consequential. You guys are not going to run off to Vegas to go get married, because that is completely insane. We don't want people ending up pregnant and bringing kids into this world in a way that is somewhat compromised. And that's not to say that accidents are not amazing. And, oops, my parents were married and my mom was on birth control and I was an oops baby. And she says I was the best surprise ever. But, when you're married and a surprise comes along, it's usually a lot easier to deal with than if you're 16, right? It immediately changes the course of your life, and it makes it somewhat difficult unless there's a whole flock of people that are able to raise a whole baby all over again, and it's not the easiest thing to do. So the Strength card in reverse is where you're feeling somewhat powerless, and I think that Mars in Libra, quincunx to Chiron in Pisces, is again telling you that maybe if you adjust some expectation of your own, like, well, Rita said, it's kind of normal part of life. 18 years old, I can go to college and then I can date, and I can vote, go to war, whatever else the privilege of being 18 years old will bring you, which voting is a big one. So, and it's exciting. And so I think that adjustment energy is required to help you understand that you are not truly powerless, you're feeling powerless. That where you have control, you can exercise it. Where you don't have control, pushing your way through it is not going to change it. What's the thing that usually happens with kids? They're told you can't do this thing. Then they sneak out of the house in the middle of the night, do this thing, get hit by a car, or worse, raped, hurt, murdered. Now at the murdered point, you've gone home, game over, but it leaves a lot of holes in people's lives and holes in the heart for sure. But then what happens as a consequence of you rebelling and going out and getting caught sneaking out or in, God forbid, and then you're like, oh God, no. Then you're going to be on lockdown for a long time. So take heart that you're not as limited as you just are your age. And like I said, college, freedom, fun, choices, interaction, being dynamic, no matter what it is you want to learn. Or even if you're like my 17-year-old that says, I don't know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to have to end up changing my major. I'm like, dude, you haven't even gotten to college yet and you're already changing your major. Where it's kind of expected you'll change. You only have to declare a major so that they can fill in some bubbles, on a piece of paper. Other than that, if you change your mind, they probably wouldn't appreciate you changing your mind left and right. But for what it's worth, you're just going to do what you need to do. So on Saturday, we have the Tower card here in reverse. That new moon on Friday where you're feeling a little bit powerless, by the way, makes sense, because even though that new moon is lovely in Sagittarius and it feels very hopeful and positive, the problem is Mars, over there in Libra. And so, of course, this Pluto-Uranus square that is still in effect on its way out, but it's only, what, about 1 degree apart right now. It still is in effect. It's not like this crap happens like stoplights. Green, the planet is direct, and yellow, it's stationing and about to go retrograde, and red is just stopped. It's not like that. It doesn't happen that quickly, obviously. Check out some of the speeds of the objects in space and you'll have an idea. But here the Tower in reverse is indicating, I think, that where you feel like I should have this new hopeful optimism and enjoy it, and then reality kind of kicks me in the butt. And Tower in reverse is kind of a kick in the butt reality check, but at least with you guys, it's interesting. With the adults, it's like, oh my God, I'm worried about them. But it really isn't as worrisome, because the older we get, and the more rings in the tree, which I likened myself to a damn tree stump recently, but the more you'll understand. So you're only expected to be able to understand that which you can understand, which would be totally relative to your level of maturity, your level of understanding, your chronological age. And you guys have heard me say many times, the juvenile brain doesn't even finish developing until about 25 years old. Yes, I said 25. So your little brains are kind of like undercooked scrambled eggs. And I'm not meaning that in any negative way, because I wish I could just go back to my scrambled eggs. I don't want to be like hard boiled and flipped over. So this Tower, I really think, is talking about some reality checks with you guys, and it could feel a little uncomfortable. Let's just use the idea of, you thought somebody was about to ask you out, and they do, and everything is okay, and then they say, no, what it is my parents won't let me, and I've got Bible study, and then I have to floss my teeth, and then I have to change my underwear. And you're like, wow, that's like starting to sound like a bunch of excuses. Well, then at that point, it's like a Jerry Springer moment, right? Well, it's not like you can do anything about it now. And you wouldn't force a person to stay or be with you or love you or date you if they don't feel it. I know that we all go through this, but you never really want to have to sit there and convince somebody of why they should be your friend or love you or be your boyfriend or girlfriend, etc. And some of us, like me, it took much longer to learn that. On Sunday, we have the Nine of Swords in reverse, and this is a card that indicates it is getting better. To take heart that these things will improve. And even though, when you're in the middle of some of these stressful situations, it isn't because you guys are over dramatic or anything like that. It's just because you're new, very raw, very feeling surface. You're able to really experience emotions, whereas you've seen it probably even with your own parents or guardians, where they're just like jaded. And somebody could say, because my boyfriend broke my little heart. And they're like, yeah, get over it. And we're like, oh my God, that is so insensitive. They're really feeling pain. Feel it with them, help them. But other than that, guys, I think that this is just part of that week, the transition. Once we get past this new moon on the 11th, it will actually get a lot easier as we go along. So don't let it bother you too much. And you know what? If all else fails, party, sing, dance, draw, paint, scream, catch a lizard, blow bubbles. If it's very wintry and cold wherever you are, like where I am right now, of course the landscape changes and it kind of limits things. But, if you've got skating rink, ice skate, if you've got places to do things to distract you, do that. And I always say it's good to pick up another book, read a book, read a story, pick up some extra credit at school, do things that will actually help you. I have my youngest reading George Orwell's 1984, brilliant work. I can't even remember the year it was written. It was either somewhere in the late 30s, early 40s, could be mid 40s. So it's incredible where you'll be able to draw the connections when you've ever heard the term, hey, Big Brother is watching, which now I just wonder if I'm freaking old and crotchety and you guys don't know what I'm talking about. But you can usually read that for free on Amazon Kindle. So you would go to the Kindle book section. You don't need to buy a Kindle or own one. It's just an app, and it could be an app on your computer, your phone, or it can actually be read online. Create your account at Amazon. And there's lots of old works that don't have the same copyright kind of information because it was before these different rules were put into place. So you'll see if it says that you want to order the Kindle, edition. You have to have somebody apply a credit card, even just temporarily, I think, to be able to read them for free. Double check me on that. But read George Orwell's 1984. Total trip. Have a wonderful week, and I'll be talking to you soon. And remember, as soon as you get past that new moon, things will start to improve significantly, you guys.